Hey everybody, welcome to Hear Us Out. I am Patrick,
And I'm Paul.
and hopefully you were seeing us live. Anybody out there in the chat that wants to let us know if this is all worked out fine after last week's minor mishap from me, which we ended up leaving in. I didn't even bother trimming it because we didn't say anything that could get us arrested. Paul, how have you
Arrested.
been? Well, not fully
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
arrested.
whoa, whoa. I didn't join a YouTube channel to get arrested. I joined it so that I could become infamous.
Infamous. Well, at the moment we're shying away from actual famous, so infamous is possible eventually. Have you had a good week, Paul? Because what we're about to tell everybody, which is the subject of this week's show, is that they're about to have a great weekend. So, how have you been, and are you looking forward to what we're about to tell everybody tonight?
There is so much coming out this weekend, and we've decided to pick probably my personal favorite thing that's coming out over the weekend. But like, there's other shit that's coming out.
And
Pardon my language. Um,
no, go for it.
but
The
like, yeah. So it's interesting.
For those watching in the future, this is the night before. This is live the night before Wandavision debuts on Disney Plus. But what we're actually talking about, what we are giving the world, is a good heads up that they're going to go ahead and do it and put it up for free. They're actually giving us the Universal monster movies for free on YouTube. Well, 7 of them anyway.
Hmm.
They're going to be up for, I think, a week or a little bit over. We can't kind of get that confirmed. They're going to be up for a little while on YouTube for free, at least a week, and available at a lower cost digital buy during that time. But essentially, this weekend, on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, every day they'll be releasing a couple of the classic monster movies. Classic monster movies, Paul, such as,
But the
yeah,
original Dracula,
go for it.
1931. The original Mummy, which is 1932, I believe. That'll come out tomorrow.
Yep,
Which is this is where this is the Frankenstein and Frankenstein's Bride is coming out on Saturday,
Saturday,
I believe.
that's the one.
And the Invisible Man, the Wolfman.
Wolfman,
Yeah, and then the one that I'm like really confused about, the Costello. What is this?
Abbott and Costello meet
Yeah,
Frankenstein.
which is the only
Um,
one of the classic movies that I actually haven't seen.
well, actually, it's funny you should mention it because I was going to ask you what you have seen. Now, I think I pretty much have seen because I saw an awful lot of Abbott and Costello when I was a kid. I just can't remember if I've seen that one. I know I've seen them in a few of the monster movies. They met the mummy at one point. Kind of, they were on TV on Saturday mornings, and like our national broadcaster here in Ireland was pretty good at buying old movies and then just playing them every month on a Saturday morning. So you could, if you only saw half the movie on one and one particular month, come back the next month, watch the second half.
Yeah, yeah.
But of the others, I was going to ask, have you actually seen them all? Because I have not seen Bride of Frankenstein, much to my shame. You know, it's like everything else. I've seen bits, but I've never
Yes,
actually seen it completely.
I get that because like anytime I really have a conversation about these kind of classic movies, people have either seen them fully or seen pieces of them, and like yeah, I've seen them all except for the Abbott and Costello one. That's
Hmm.
the only one that I haven't seen. But like a lot of the time, I do get conversations where people will say they've seen them probably in like YouTube clip shows and stuff like that, or that kind of like I know several YouTube channels also do the kind of like part one, and they kind of choose the best part of the movie kind of at the start, and they go through like part 10, and
Yeah.
they kind of cut and choose and stuff like that to give you the gist and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I've seen them all just because classic movie, like horror movie, you got to start somewhere. And you might as well start at like some of the beginning. And Universal Studios brought the horror.
Well, they really did, and okay, there's a few noticeable absentees here. You know, you've got the creature from the Black Lagoon and all that sort of stuff. So any of the real horror purists out there, like, well, it's not all the original monster movies. It's a pretty good selection. And did I use my favorite word ever? Also, free, free on YouTube. By the way, thank you again, YouTube, for facilitating us being free. If you're paying anybody to watch us right now, there's something very wrong because this should all be free. And if you're paying anybody, it should be me or him. Um, really importantly, though, for getting kind of this sort of stuff going on YouTube, I think it's going to be a great way. I hope for people to take that chance to watch these things in their entirety now. Because, like you say, you've seen bits of them, or like in my case, some of these I haven't seen since, I was a very much younger person. Some of them, okay, I have seen in more recent, but even the more recent, I'm talking about in the last 10, 15, maybe more years in some cases. So this is a chance for everybody to get reacquainted, and because they're releasing them consecutively, and you've got all week or a bit longer to take them in, you'll be able to get a real vibe going, and you'll be able to enjoy that classic cinema. Like, these things are famous for a reason. It's not just because they're famous stories or famous monsters. They're really quite well-made movies. These are not the Ed Wood monster movies that kind of people think of. These are not the, thing from outer space, real cheap production stuff. This was big studio, okay, not spending huge amounts of money necessarily, but big studio productions with amazing directors, cinematographers. Everybody in the sets alone in some of these will astound you. You'll be thinking, really, in the 30s they made that? And it invented a lot of special effects that we have today, or popularized some special effects. Invisible Man alone is it's a how to do visual tricks for real.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's classic kind of special effects where they didn't have any computers or anything like that, and the most advanced thing they had was essentially the film cutter to kind of cut, splice, and stuff like that together and stuff. So that's the biggest interest and stuff like that. So
well, can I ask, Paul? Do you think I think we've given people a good enough reason to watch these movies? We'll go through each of the movies maybe in a minute if that's okay with you.
Oh yeah.
But first, let's maybe talk about. These things have inspired future generations of filmmakers to make monster movies. And in a lot of ways, it's one of the original franchises in a kind of an MCU, unconnected characters, a bit of the monster verse. So what are you thinking that they might be up to here, trying to gin up some interest?
Well, this is the thing. So it seems like, so we've had it in the past. We've had some revamps of some classic horror movies and stuff like that. With Dracula Untold, with Lee Evans as Vlad the Impaler, which is an interesting kind of story rendition of it, because it was all to do with the kind of Turkish army and the Romanians and stuff like that, because they had a whole big deal back in. They were part of that kind of empire kind of thing, but that was supposed to be the start of Universal's dark universe. But because of problems with that film, they decided we're not going to include that in the universe kind of thing. So they decided to start with somewhere else.
Yeah,
and
I've got it on screen. I clicked too early. Sorry, I'm trying to produce on the fly over here with some visuals.
Yeah,
I clicked, assuming you were just about to say Tom Cruise is the Mummy. And I gave the game away. Sorry.
Oh no! Like, I think it's well known that Universal's The Mummy with Tom Cruise as the lead kind of thing was meant to be their actual start to the universe, and the film really kind of lays up to that kind of thing with some hidden other monsters and stuff like that, and with some other organizations and stuff like that that may come into us and stuff.
The whole Russell Crowe scene. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. Paul, I don't think we reviewed this movie. I thought it was dirt. I thought it was absolute dung. I'm assuming you weren't massively impressed by it either?
I think it was too Tom Cruisey, and I feel like bringing in an organization that essentially, like, spoiler alert, an organization that essentially is designed throughout the years to fight monsters. One is already kind of like with Hellboy and stuff like that, and the Bureau of Paranormal Investigations and stuff like that. They brought it in too soon. Yeah. They should have just had a monster film, and then like in Iron Man, where they at the end with Nick Fury kind of jesting that there's a wider universe.
Yeah,
that would have been a really good point. Like, of kind of like near the end, maybe having some helpers or some, that kind of.
There were definitely better ways to do it. I think this was, what, hubris is a terrible thing. Pride does come before a fall. I think they wanted their universe, When you have somebody like Tom Cruise involved, then they're like, we're going to do the Mummy with, oh, like the Brendan Fraser thing. No, we're going to go ahead and MCU ourselves, except the M this time is going to be the Monster Universal universe. We're going to call it the Dark Universe. Tom Cruise is going to kick it off with the Mummy. And we're so confident that, like, in between the second and third act, I believe, we're going to throw Russell Crowe in there as, I'm assuming he was, what do you call him? Jekyll, Dr. Jekyll. And we're going to have him walk through a room that is essentially a trinket hall of these are all the future monsters and villains that we may be showing you. And it was just bad. It was too confident, and the film wasn't good enough to carry it off. So that can be kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, like I think because that's what happened with Dracula Untold. At the end of the film, so obviously Dracula Untold is set back in the kind of like I guess Dark Ages, whereas there's like a little bit at the end that kind of suggests that they're in the modern world and stuff like that. And like it's just like it's like at least Dracula Untold did it subtly, whereas Mummy shoves it into your face, and you're just like, you're not ready. Like, you should have seen how your story, like, get people interested in the monster, get people
Yeah.
interested in like how Tom Cruise and the Mummy is connected. What's she gonna do? That kind of like get them interested in the whole kind of like Tom Cruise versus the monster and people versus the
Yeah.
monster, and then jest at a wider universe, which makes people go, oh, I'm interested in now in the wider universe thing rather than just shoving it. It feels like because the plot might be too weak. I know I'm go rambling now,
No, it's all right.
but it feels
They, they deserve your ramble, as in they deserve your rage here.
yeah, like it feels like the plot was too weak, so they had to prop it up with hidden gems of a bigger universe already, which is it's
Yeah.
bad.
Look, I'm no expert, but you should probably do it in the order of hope that you can make a bigger universe out of something, then start by making a good movie and giving yourself the opportunity to grow out of that. Don't do it in reverse and go, right, I think we'll assume that this movie's going to go great and that we're going to do a good job. Because I think they just took their eye off the ball and they moved to step two and didn't do step one first.
Which just on a phrasing, that seems to be the classic thing of building a universe
Mm.
so far that both DC and Universal have both fallen down on.
I,
Like, as
I
in, they do not build a good intro movie to something and then build to the wider universe, whereas Marvel built Iron Man and then suggested a wider world, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Like,
And remember, they didn't lock themselves into anything. Remember, Ed Norton was the Incredible Hulk, and like that was a misstep back at the start. The Iron Man then to that and post credit scenes, but they were able to stumble on and right the ship. And I actually don't think that's a bad movie, and we've talked about this before. But from a universe building commercial grabbing the public's attention point of view, they were able to navigate those waters because they didn't just assume it was going to work. And that's the problem with DC and Universal had. They saw somebody else do it and they thought, we can do that. Whereas the other crowd that had just done it carefully did it. They took their time and gave themselves chances to fail and to bounce back. Speaking of bouncing back, though, I want to call up The Invisible Man, which is the most recent of the Universal. They've dropped Dark Universe or Universal Dark or whatever it was called. But this has been made as a kind of a smaller Blumhouse horror movie, or scare movie, I should say. And I think that was a wise choice. Now they've opened up the door to redoing all of their monster movies, let's say, as separate, like doing their Iron Mans. And if it turns out that they can then see some interconnecting tissue that they can use, maybe they can do that. If nothing else, they've got their properties going again.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like, the they've proven the fact that by making kind of like a good like a good monster movie kind of thing um will lead to or could lead towards a wider kind of universe and stuff like that, especially if they take the time and effort and stuff like that to hammer down a good plot. Because like the problem is that, like, although we are probably a lot more forgiving with comic book heroes, like, it's with monster movies, if you don't do them right, they don't go to the kind of like at least they tried. They go to the classical hilarious kind of like failure. You know, they don't go, that's a bad movie. They just go to, that's just bad and campy
That's
and
yeah, comically bad.
yeah, you know.
Which actually, and to give that the new Invisible Man movie credit, the idea that they didn't try and again, I don't think necessarily they will go. We want to make a universe, and I think that's the smart thing here. They're thinking we want to use our properties, we want to use our properties well. You know what's better than having a big interconnected universe, having successful movies that you can then just make standalone sequels to, you know, as in direct sequels to. They don't have to interconnect to anywhere else. That was the way it was for years before the MCU and studios made money. The Invisible Man, very highly rated. People liked it. I have yet to see it. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. No, it's one that's been on the list.
I gotta say, and Elizabeth Moss was you know a great catch for them at the time because she was hot, as they say in Hollywood, because of the Hulu show, Pilgrimy People. Oh my God, Handmaid's Tale. Thank you. That was killing me there. I was gonna go, not The West Wing because that's what I. Every time I see her, I still see, you know, Jed Bartlett's daughter. It's terrible.
Yeah, I know.
But that's how good The West Wing was. So yeah, fair play to them. They did that. If they can give medium budgets to good filmmakers, they're going to end up making good profit. And we have to steer this back at some stage to the reason we're talking about this. Why do these properties even have somewhere to start from? It's because of the classic movies. The classic movies that we should throw out our comments, actually. Does anybody want to say what their favorite classic is?
Well, Brew likes to say, so how's it going, Brew? It's supposed to be really good, as in, I think he's talking about the Invisible Man. Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about this and like that. So, which goes Under His Eye.
Under His Eye. I don't know what that means, but thank you, Brew. If you want to follow up with a comment as to what that means. Nosferatu. Okay. Oh, that's... Sorry, I thought that was Brew replying. Yeah, Nosferatu was the original. But actually, that brings us nicely onto the vampire himself. The good old gentleman Nosferatu. What would happen if Nosferatu owned a bit of land, as we say in Ireland? Then you'd get Dracula. Dracula is, of all these classics, is it my favorite? It's one of my favorites for its patience, set design, and just its cinematography. It so blows my doors off that it was 1930 or 1931 when they made it. It's just really, really impressive. And Bela Lugosi doesn't get enough credit for, you know, people are like, oh, well, you know, he's avant the saga rod. If you watch it back, the guy made the quintessential Dracula that we all know today.
Like that's the thing about him. Dracula is kind of is the important one as well because since it's the first one of the classic movie kind of things, it's got a lot of weight on its shoulders, and it did play it really well. It was also the best way of showing that movies, like it's essentially moving picture theater, you know, kind of thing, which is very important as well because that's how they played it. And like, so it's not only are you getting like classic movie monster and stuff like that, you were getting classic theater movie monster kind of stuff, which is just, it's got a charm to it that just nothing else is able to bring it. Like, well, you know,
Bela Lugosi played Dracula on Broadway before playing him as the famous titular character in the major motion picture that it would become. And yet it kicked this whole ball off. And it's hard to imagine just what that would mean in the 1930s. You're talking about like Metropolis was 10 years before, and that was blowing people's minds. But you know, you're talking going from silent movies into you know, Dracula with extra wide stares and well lit eyes, the Shatner eyes as I like to call them, ever since the original series of Star Trek. You know, it's awesome. It's epic. I think if I was to say to somebody who's like, I don't know if I'm into old movies, or I don't know if I'm into the old monster movies or old horror, I'd be like, you know what, just try Dracula out And if it doesn't tickle your artistic funny bone, or at the very least give you a good sense of how dread could be built back in the cinema, because it's not scary, it just tries to build creepy dread a little bit more. I think everybody, even today, will get something from it, and you won't feel too jaded.
Yeah, like I think that's the thing. As in, I think you'll be able to. This will be the wonder of things. If you've never seen them before, I recommend watching them because not only are they these great films, they'll bring you back to the classic short film as well because they're not that long.
No,
But you will see every single trope that you not trope, but every single hallmark of a monster film, a monster horror film, and
yeah,
stuff like that. That you will see, like it doesn't matter what film you've seen recently, like even in the Mummy and like Tom Cruise's The Mummy, you'll see classical things, but like even so, the just the light beam on the eye thing is a classic trope that happens all the time and happens in like the Adams Family and several other like films that are being made in like the last like what 4 decades or so. So
they like you say, they came up with a lot of maneuvers. They really did, and it's not just that they did them; it's that they did them well. So for every scene that cuts to a rubber bat bouncing on a bit of fishing wire, because there's a bit of that. Don't get me wrong; it's still there. There'll be another scene of a 4-story high, stone staircase with perfect kind of patina of old kind of ruined castle and well lit, well motivated camera movement. It's impressive. So yeah, like I give Dracula the kind of the thumbs up. It's the one I'm most excited to just sit down and watch again. And like you say, you don't have to give up your whole night to it because it's as long as a episode of an extended TV episode these days.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like they're not that long, so like they don't take much out, and like it's like reading any of the classical books or anything like that. It's something that I think if you're in any way a hit like a movie cinema kind of like aficionado, not even aficionado, if you just like film and TV kind of stuff, and like it's not a pompous thing to be just like, oh, I've seen the original Dracula. All I'm saying is watch them and just see see the classics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're classic for a reason.
Yeah, and like we're supposed to sound all lovey-dovey and shout on about, oh, brilliant classic cinema. That's because that's what we're doing on YouTube right now. So we're okay to look like that sort of Egypt. For anybody else who just wants to sit down and watch it, it's good entertainment. It's like just watching a good movie. That's what you're doing. It just happens to be older. And also, these releases are going to be the remastered, obviously black and white. None of that colorized bull crap. Boo to colorization for films that old. I'm okay with stuff closer to the changeover period, but to the real old classics now. Would you mind? Oh, sorry, go for it.
They also, because just on that point, the reason that I am also against kind of the colorization of older films is because that they use the light, they use the color, the fact that they can only guess like black, grays, and whites, kind of things like
Yeah.
that they use that kind of shadowing and lighting and stuff like that. So when you colorize them, it does take away a little bit from them. So yeah, so I'm happy
It
that they're
certainly
going to keep
does.
them.
Yeah, that's a
So
really good point. And actually, Nosferatu, that I think Casey Wonder mentioned in the comments, that's a great example of that. A great example of knowing that that was their color palette. Do you want to hit the comments while I throw up our next movie on screen?
so yeah, so we've got a lot of love for Nosferatu, which I'm happy with because it's a classical kind of like thing. Bruce said that the under his eye is a Handmaid's Tales reference.
Okay.
Um, does Salem's Lot count as a classic?
See, now, if you're not a regular viewer of the channel, and my voice even broke thinking about Salem's Lot, myself and Paul had to talk once on air about what movies scared us as children, and Paul told a beautiful and touching story about Gremlins giving him the absolute creeps for like 3 weeks, I think he said.
Yeah, something like that.
And I told the story of watching Salem's Lot and never being able to sleep in a room with curtains drawn again. And never is not quite true. It was only the next 32 years or so. um, So yeah, Salem's Lot might count as a classic, all right, in a different way. And I would thank you all to not bring it up again. This is this is not emotionally okay for me. I've thrown Frank up on screen, as I like to call him. You know, when you're close with the monsters, you just it's
You
not
just use
actually
it because
Frankenstein. He is the
yeah,
monster. I know.
I was going to say let's not fall into the trope where we call him Frankenstein and then
Yeah.
get like 100 YouTube comments where it's just like it's not actually Frankenstein. That's the you know
Except I rage against that because I'm like, how many people look at him and just say Frankenstein? I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's fine. You know, we can all know that Frankenstein was the madman that brought his monster to life. But as far as I'm concerned, the monster's name is Frank, so never mind Frankenstein. I can start whang on about how much I think this is a masterpiece. But I think this is another example, like Bela Lugosi was for Dracula, Boris Karloff for Frankenstein.
like can't say much. Like he's the perfect like remedition remedition of like sorry remedition of Frankenstein. Tall man built like a brick shit house kind of thing. He's like a very good kind of intimidating look about him and stuff like that. Perfect kind of acting for a kind of corpse or Promethean, So
Yeah, he's the lack of verbal. And again, if you haven't seen the original, now is your chance. It's going to be out by Saturday. It's going to be free, and you are going to love it. The idea that he's non-verbal and is more of a grunting, groaning creature doesn't mean that he's just like a zombie from a lot of modern zombie movies. There's still a character in there, and there's a sadness and a soft beauty to the character and the way the character's played. So, like, I don't want to get all political or anything, but the world we live in today, some of these movies, you're going to see some social allegory of lack of understanding that will make you kind of go, "Oh God, when was this written? Oh, it was made in the '30s, but when was the story written? Wow, people were already understanding that we can't all just get along and understand each other's differences." And I think Frankenstein is a classic for all sorts of reasons.
yeah, like I do have to mention that the book and Frankenstein the movie are a little different,
Mm,
but they still have this whole kind of, as you said, misunderstanding of what they're like, what they are communicating with and trying to kind of empathize with,
yeah.
kind of thing. So just want to mention that
Oh
just
no,
for book
I think
readers and stuff like
you're
that.
right too. And there's all sorts of cool stories behind the writing of that as well. But again, if you think you've seen Frankenstein, you probably are thinking, yeah, I've definitely seen Frankenstein. Have you ever seen it all the way through? Because we all grew up seeing 20 minutes of it at a time, even before YouTube, because you were just catching it live TV. So take the time, sit down and enjoy. Um, here's one of the ones. Bride of Frankenstein is up next, Paul. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it. I think just from it's always looked super cool, and the imagery of the Bride of Frankenstein. She's just so iconic.
Yeah.
Like I'm really looking forward to watching that one. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, this is the interesting this is the interesting kind of, I guess, start of the expansion of kind of the classic monster movie stuff like that. So it's a good film. It's a great film, which goes, as I said, just expands on the thing and shows that kind of love. Like love's a bit weird and can like transverse like death and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
And let's face it, love
So
is weird. So
yeah,
if no other
sorry.
message should ever be given by a movie, that's it. Also, more mad scientists than an episode of Rick and Morty. Like you have to love a bit of mad scientist going on, and especially a little bit of passionate delivering of "It's alive." Because again, even
Yeah,
though I've never
that's
seen the whole movie, we've all seen the Bride of Frankenstein "It's alive" clip because he
yeah.
delivers it with such gusto.
Victor Frankenstein just decides to go full ham again on this. It's like he's just like, oh, I need to do this again.
It's alive. I actually think we should change that slightly. So if you're watching at home right now and you're wondering what you should do, you should subscribe, or click like, share, comment. There you go.
Ring that ring that notification bell to get notifications when we release new videos, and also when we're going to go live. And also set it to all notifications.
Yeah, tickle notify other words and tropes. You got some comments?
Yeah, KC Wonder 99 has said that the creature from the Black Lagoon has incredible staying power for something that I've never seen and hasn't been remade.
It's true.
First of all, I can't believe that you've never seen it. It is a great film, and it hasn't been remade, but it has been spread throughout classical comic books and stuff like that. That it has. I do believe that there is a sequel to it as well later on in the years and stuff like that. So I'm sure,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's probably a remake, but not in a kind of like, it's probably the when Black Lagoon, the monster from Black Lagoon kind of went out of kind of copyright or anything like that. I'm sure some small group got it. Also, a little trivia piece here.
Is this going to have Guillermo del Toro? Is this going to have your boy?
Yeah,
because I was about to say, if you do not mention this, you're like, that's it, we're done.
It's Guillermo del Toro's favorite film. It's the film that kind of got him into kind of the he's now become the master of the kind of like monster movie kind of show.
Yeah.
And Black Lagoon is where it started for him. He saw it at a kind of at his local cinema and stuff like that. So I believe his father brought him to see it, after being hounded to bring him to see us and stuff like that. That got
The Shape of Water is you can see the hints of love letter to Creature of the Black Lagoon, or from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah,
Del
Toro. Yeah, very much so. Like if you haven't seen us and stuff like that, I'm sure that it's probably on sale in. I'm sure YouTube probably has it on sale. Apple TV probably has it on sale, stuff like that. Because that's a film that's.
Well, if this is a success, they may have more of these movies coming along for free to drum up business.
Yeah, very much so. Casey Wonder also says, oddly for Frank, if we're naming him Frank, he could speak fine in the book. Yeah, he could. Yeah, that's the difference is that in I guess Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's book Frankenstein, it's more of a revenge story for the monster than it is not a revenge story. Sorry, I should more of a kind of like, I guess, murder. It's weird. Read the book.
Yeah, but and again, to my point for the non-verbalization, like that's where a movie can do. And actually, you know what? If we ever do a book to movie adaptation, Frankenstein will get a mention, because you don't always have to follow the source material to make your best possible moving picture. And I think Frankenstein's a really good example of that. Taking a kernel of inspiration and goodness from a book and doing their own thing with it, and actually, striking gold.
Well, this is the thing. It's a good interpretation of another story to do, like Frankenstein's monster and stuff like that. So
yeah, and it works really well in the medium. So on next, let's just kick out the last couple. Boris Karloff's back again. The big tall brick shit house that he is. This time is the Mummy, Imhotep, or Tef. I never know how you should actually pronounce that. Imhotep. The classic.
I think it's.
Oh, go for it.
I think it's Imhotep,
Okay.
because I think they reused the name in the
Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, so I think it's Imhotep. Yeah,
and I thanks to those Brendan Fraser movies, I will never forget the his love, the love of his life, Anouk Son of Moon. I'm like, there you go. That's as close to that name as I'll ever get. It's like Anouk Son of Moon. Yeah, I can pronounce that one. Everybody else, I'm gonna mess up your pronunciation. Mummy. It's a little bit more standard fare in some ways for these movies, because it's a little bit of kind of Dracula again, kind of Frankenstein again. Like there's a few things with a difference. Don't get me wrong, with a difference. I still think it's great. Again, enjoyable for different reasons. Has a lot of the same visual tricks, let's say, as Dracula to add your tension to the main character. But yeah, I think the Mummy got remakes, and let's not forget it got multiple remakes. But it had success with Brendan Fraser, and it had success with this movie because at its heart, it's a good little story, told in an interesting region, that you don't actually have that many Western films made about. Particularly at the time, this would have been hot off the Tutankhamun discovery. So
yeah, like that's the interesting, because like I know where you're coming from in the sense that it's a very similar story kind of Dracula and the Mummy kind of thing. They are very close to each other, kind of thing. But it's the element of the curse, kind of thing, where it's like that also what makes that kind of also terrifying, in the sense that it's there's a certain group of people that have been cursed, and no matter, like with Dracula, you kind of feel like if I leave now and I go to another country, I will never see this thing again. I will never see this Dracula again. But the Mummy has a little bit of a more creepy thing, because they are cursed and it follows them and stuff like that. So it means that there's no, it's unrelenting, I think, is a little bit the difference there.
yeah. I was just about to say, it takes the horror buff of the two of us to be like, yeah, but the bit that's really, really good and creepy about it is that you can't outrun it. I'm like, yeah. These are the things that I know from an academic point of view, but then I try and forget after I watch the movies, because Salem's Lot, not able to look out a window at night. Can we just pay homage then to the Wolfman? Good old Wolfman is long before Michael Jackson Thriller. It's long before American Werewolf in London. It's not even Werewolf, it's Wolfman. Again, iconic. Like it is just iconic. How can you not want to see the originator of the species, quite literally in this case?
Like that's the thing, because like you should also look at the transformation sequence as well, as kind of like done in a very classical kind of way and stuff like that, which is great. It's once again it's very difficult for them to do a transformation of a human to Wolfman kind of thing, and it is the start of the kind of lycanthrope, kind of Western lycanthrope ontology. So that's very interesting. And this has had so many renditions. It's had the Wolfman as well, which had what's his name?
Benicio del Toro.
Anthony. It also had Anthony Hopkins,
yeah.
who played the Hunter, I believe, which happened a couple of years ago. Yeah, Del Toro was also in that film. There's Wolf as well, that has Jack Nicholson in it. And that's a classic. That's that's set in late 80s, early 90s.
I've seen that and I cannot remember it. I gotta go back and watch that actually.
That shows the kind of range of kind of so many times. Like the Wolfman seems to be one of the ones that's been remade the most, and also has kicked off an anthology of lycanthropes. Well, Underworld.
Yeah, I was just about to say, sorry, go for that, because I'm gonna throw a question at you then.
Underworld wouldn't be the same without the Wolfman kind of thing. Like there is lycanthrope ontology, like there is lycanthrope lore and stuff like that throughout Western worlds and stuff like that, thanks to the Brothers Grimm and stuff like that, which I am actually rereading or re-listening to most of their stories and stuff.
Oh.
But without the Wolfman making it popular, you wouldn't have Teen Wolf or any of those.
I'm gonna have to press you, Paul. What would we not have without Dracula? Like we wouldn't have modern cinema the way we know it without the movies that we're talking about. By the way, that's why we're talking about them, and that's why it's great that they're free, and it's great that more people will be able to see them with no barriers and nothing to inhibit them. But without Dracula and without Wolfman, there would be no Twilight, Paul. Let that sink in.
Well,
I know your team Taylor Lautner. I don't even remember who was in those things.
I could also say that there wouldn't be a Twilight, or there wouldn't be a Twilight without Romeo and Juliet as well, just to really kind of kick that off a little bit.
There wouldn't be
Um,
a Twilight without a load of money in teenage angst as well. So, gosh, you know what? I should stop giving those movies such a hard time. It's just every time I think of it. And please, if you're a Twilight fan out there, I mean no disrespect to you. They're fine movies for whatever they are, and they're cool. I like Cannonball Run. I'm into cars. I'm not going to defend it, but I have an easier time defending it than I do the running up the hill scene in that first Twilight movie, which I watched with my wife, my now wife. Then she's like, "Okay, I've seen this movie. You've got to see this thing. I really think you'll hate it, but sometimes it's fun to watch things that you hate with you." There's a bit where she jumps on his back and they run up a hill in the most comedy Benny Hill sped up kind of way ever that I'll never be able to unsee and kind of go, people actually went to the cinema and took this one seriously?
yeah, yeah. The other sad thing is that the books are actually decent,
Oh,
and the
okay.
movies is really kind of like. And I say that in such a way that I've read trash, but like the Twilight book series is actually not too bad. Like
Yeah.
it's still angsty teen book kind of thing, but like it's when I watched some of the films of the Twilight series, I was just like, oh, I've wasted my life.
Look, there are plenty of redeeming features in it all, but it's just like,
Not the movies.
it's just once you see that one thing and it catches your eye and is burned in your memory. Like if I could play it right now, I really would, just to show everybody. That's the damn thing about live, not able to cut in because you would all be laughing. Maybe Google running uphill Twilight, the first one. Anyway, I'm just gonna check the chat because I see damn Dracula for inspiring Twilight. Now don't hold it against Dracula on his own because remember there was also werewolves in that. So yeah. Let's spread the blame around. I'm going to kick into The Invisible Man, which we already mentioned because it's got the most recent remake, which hit some decent critical acclaim and viewer acclaim. Invisible Man for me is all about the special effects.
Yeah, like it's a classic as well with the way that they did a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah, and it's not just him being invisible. It's their ability to make a world move around and have you believe that there's an invisible person moving around, making footprints, knocking things over. It's worth it, folks. It is really worth it.
yeah, like just to kind of because it was colored, it was an interesting it was movie painted as well, which was an interesting kind of way of doing. I don't know if Patrick is frozen. I'm pretty worried.
Have I frozen?
No, no, no. I
Sorry,
thought you were standing very still, and I was just like, either he's doing Drax
I was just about to.
or he's
Damn it! I was going to
um
say I was doing a Drax.
which goes, or he's currently reading a very an interesting comment, which I'll go back to in a second. Yeah, it's painted, which is an interesting little piece of special effects. They actually got the film strip, which is the 40, is it 40 mil? It's 40 mil.
Yeah, for a film
40
that
mil,
would have, yeah.
40, yeah, it's 40 millimeter, which
It's
is
not 35 for film back then. So yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So like yeah, and they got the scene, they got all the frames for the scene that they needed to paint out, which I think is one of the ones that you actually have showing, with him eating, how he just the mask up a little bit. It's each frame is painted, like just so that he blends in with the background and stuff like that. So if you look really closely, you can act like when you watch the film, you can see the person, like you can kind of see them, which is it's just a moment of kind of like someone had to come up with that idea,
Yeah, and then
kind of
have the
thing.
dedication to say, yeah, we can do this. I've got an idea. I know how to do it. It's going to be difficult, but check it out. It's going to be worthwhile.
Now, just so not every single piece of frame was painted, as in they painted the original film and then copied that.
Yeah,
That's just before I get any kind of
good
comment.
point
I'm
actually.
going. Anyone goes, did they paint every single frame of every single movie? Though no, they did the original and copied it. Just what was the interesting comment that you were saying?
No, it's just a lost part of your soundproofing on the wall. Somebody pointed out to me. I just want to say there was an awful lot of soundproofing back there originally because we used to record that way. But I have got cats now, and the cats like dismantling it. So it's all become pretty unstable, let's say. Keep watching, folks. Don't stop watching until it's all come down. Then we'll
Yeah.
be moving to our new premises and our new set. Invisible Man got the love. This next one, Abbott and Costello, the last one. I think the funny thing there is, and what I've got on screen, Paul, is the poster, but also just a quick shot of the monsters that they use in this, being Frank, the monster of Frankenstein, Dracula, and Wolfman. What a great hint to what we started this episode talking about, which is monster verses. Um, they created so many movies crossing over their different monsters. But the idea that they could use Abbott and Costello and say, right, we don't really need a good reason. We're just going to come up with a reason, and we're going to have fun with having Dracula and the Wolfman show up in the same movie with a couple of comedians. Like they did more than the MCU with less characters. Like the MCU has all of the Marvel comics to draw from. These guys had less than a dozen, less than 10, in fact, monsters. How many movies did they get out of, like you say, Wolfman alone? And even at the time, all the follow-ups to any of these movies and all the crossovers, they did a great job of milking this particular cow.
Well, this is the thing. Like, although I haven't seen Amazon's Costello meets Frankenstein, there's so many crossovers with these characters, with the monsters and stuff like that. Scooby Doo meets them a couple of times. Like there's I don't think there's any time of a classic. I think I think Batman meets them at some point. I think Superman meets them. I think like Frankenstein, which goes Frankenstein also sorry, each of the characters also have created characters within comic books, and I don't mean like Dracula, the comic book Dracula, Mobius, which is
Oh
coming
yeah,
out soon for the Spider Verse. That's based on Dracula and stuff like that. Um, Salem, or what's his name, Solomon Grundy, which is a DC character, is based on Frankenstein as well. Which is there's so like these six films, the seven films originally, like were great, but the Costello thing made them so much more widespread and available, in the sense that they were either they're scary as hell and they can scare comedy characters, or they could be funny themselves and stuff like that. So it's such a widespread kind of like reach
yeah.
for these monsters, you know.
They made them truly accessible to all ages, which is it would be called business genius and cynical right now these days. I'm sure it still was a part of that back then, but it seems so much more pure and artistic that they were like, let's have fun with our properties. I know they were keeping the lights on and paying the rent too. I'm not that naive, folks. I do want to, just because I know we could end up running up on time, I wanted to throw two things at you, Paul. Just the concept of why are these guys doing this and why do it now? I think they're doing it to give get people reinterested in these characters. I think this is not the last thing that NBC Universal are going to do. They're not cashing in, but they're taking advantage of the fact that people are at home, that YouTube is a streaming service that they can use. They can ignite some interest, just get familiarity with these characters again, and that benefits them in the long run. I also think that, and one of the commenters from last week mentioned, what's going to be the next big genre. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be the monster genre, and maybe just in horror alone, we're going to move away from found footage or whatever the last big horror thing was, slasher movies. Maybe the new slashers will be monsters.
See, this is the interesting thing, because we all know that like vampires have a list of group, like have a bunch of stuff that comes out. Then when the kind of horror monster kind of like comes back into fashion again, or comes back into popularity, it's really werewolves or it's zombies, kind of thing. Like they don't. It's never or classic monster movies. It's essentially one type of monster that gets kind of like introduced to with a
Yeah,
multitude of films. So like it's interesting. As you said, I believe that this is like Universal getting them into it, getting people who may have never heard of these or heard them in jest or seen seen them just in kind of clip shows or kind of in part kind of thing. Get them reintroduced to kind of as classical studies of movies and monsters and stuff like that. But I think we're both thinking the same thing. This is reintroducing a possibility of reinvigorating a universe.
Yeah. And they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And just goodwill alone, it shouldn't, but this is making me feel better about Universal, just the fact that they're doing this. That is one of those things. It's a lovely gesture at this time of year, considering everything that's going on in the world. Don't get me wrong, Disney, I'm still going to be watching WandaVision.
Yeah.
I now have to ask, before we go, the most serious question of all, and I hinted at this in one of our tweets. Paul, you and I have to have a serious discussion for a moment in front of the world. Who would win in a fight, Dracula or Frankenstein? Now, Frank, as we're going to have to call him, and I shouldn't have said Frankenstein, I should have said Frank. Who would win between Dracula and the monster? If we're doing boxing here, Frank's got the reach. He's got the reach. But is Dracula a bit more MMA with his moves?
See, this is the thing: are we doing to the death kind of thing, or are we doing just knockout? Because we're doing it, and then they have to fight in a ring, and they can
All right, then let's throw it over to the chat. Either shout, either put prison rules or Oxford rules, because I think they're the rules of boxing. So prison rules or Oxford. Is this in a ring or is this in a prison yard? Because I think we all know prison rules is to the death. And the Oxford boxing rules or whatever it is. Fight wins fights. Dracula wins, I'm assuming.
So I think we may see a movie into viewer movie experience in the next 10 years, probably with focus around mysteries. Yeah, I can see that. There's a lot of kind of do your own mystery films currently.
True.
Lupin, that's the new Netflix film, which is based on, or it's about detectives and stuff like that, or revenge kind of stuff. Haven't gotten to see it yet. Dracula seems to be the. See, none of you. Okay, prison. There we go.
Okay, yeah. Did somebody drop it in?
No one answered the actual question of: are we doing Oxford rules or are we doing prison rules?
Well, look, this is prison rules. It's to the death. My money. It depends which Dracula. Because
we're doing classic versus classic.
So we're doing the Bela Lugosi powered Dracula here. We're doing that guy.
Because if we pick any other Frankenstein movie, we can pick Adam, which is from that I Frankenstein movie, and he's unkillable, which defeats the whole fight person.
Yeah, true. I'm gonna say. Well, actually, no. I asked you the question. Who's your winner?
See, Dracula's he's faster. He is faster. He's probably his cognitive ability alone is a little bit faster than Frankenstein. As in thought to action is quicker. So his reflexes, that's what I was looking for, is probably a little bit faster.
From now on, I'm calling it thought to action. And next time I'm with the doctor and they're tapping my knee, I'll be like, are you checking my thought to action? Or
thanks. Yeah, and you can also that's I'll TM that as well. Dracula stealthy, flight wins fights.
Yeah, I think we all know Dracula's the winner there. Just speed alone, and I joked with Paul at another time. Someone takes a swing at Dracula, ultimate power move, turn into a bat. It's kind of handy. It's hard to fight that. It is very hard to fight that.
Yeah, and Kevin does bring up, or Casey Wonder, sorry for outing you there, Kevin.
He's been outed before on this channel. So
he doesn't need to be staked to a crossroads in the classical film. He just needs to be staked or killed by sunlight kind of thing. So, if you want, Frank could just hold him. If Frank did get him and he wasn't able to turn into a bat for some strange reason, he could just hold him until daybreak. If we're doing it outside. So that's a good point. Maybe just one. If never mind landing a punch, maybe Frankenstein just needs to use that adorable nature of his. Because let's face it, there's an adorability underneath Frank. One decent hug where Dracula thinks, okay, I'm going to nick you in the neck here, but all he does is hold on to him until the sun comes up.
And he's like, son. Yeah, so I think we can all agree that the important thing we've learned here tonight is this channel is ridiculous.
Yeah, well, we love our movies.
We do love our movies, and I'm so pumped. I cannot even imagine. You know, we had a choice. We could have done the live stream about WandaVision that the rest of the internet is doing at this moment. This is what we chose. So you can tell that we love movies and we hate success.
Well, no. See, this is the thing. I think we have now the opposite because this is coming out on the weekend. We've also mentioned WandaVision, and and
Certainly did, because I'm putting in the SEO.
But the thing is that next week we could possibly talk a little bit about WandaVision and what it might entail to the Marvel universe in the sense of going forward. Like there's plenty of stuff to talk about.
This is true.
It's all guesswork right now for people. Like if you switch over to the next guy's channel and they're just like WandaVision, man, it's all guesswork.
That's true. That's true. We wait until we know. So join us on next week's episode, which is Heroes Out 3: The Search for More Money. I'm so happy for anybody who's joined us. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's commented. Anybody who's watching this in the future, if you stuck around for all 55 minutes so far, fair play to you. Give yourself a pat in the back. Drop us a comment down below. We read and reply to as many as we can. We read every single one. Tickle the analytics. Like, share, subscribe. Subscribe! Watch yourself a classic monster movie. The description below has a link to the YouTube channel that this is going to be on. It's called Fear, the Home of Horror, I believe, which is owned by NBC Universal.
Yeah, and they have them all premiered and everything like that, so you can set reminders for when they're released. Yep. They're all going to release, I think, at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. UAT time. I would have to go and check the thing. ET.
Okay, Eastern time. So get yourself down to our description area, and you can get a link to that. And you know what? We would love anybody who's watching them again or watching them for the first time, come back to this video, drop a comment, tell us if you liked them or not. We would love to interact with you all. It's one of the main reasons we do this. Other than, I need to be able to show off my weird taping skills for stuff. I love my cats.
If people want to see, also move your head there. Move your head just slightly.
Oh, Wonder Woman.
It's a great. Like, we just need to spray that gold now.
Yeah. Except when they were there, it wasn't a Wonder Woman, but when they fall off, it's just perfect. I'm pretty sure that when the wall was fully done and my cat started pulling it off, it was trying to spell F-U, and it couldn't quite get all the right ones. I'm going to walk in someday and it's going to have written its name.
Though you can also say that it's Wayne, as in Wayne Industries or Wayne Enterprises or something.
Or like Wayland Yutani, if we want to go on an aliens tip. Look at that. Yeah,
that's true.
Next week's episode, what fictional companies, people or otherwise, have W as their their logo? And maybe the week after that, I'll turn it upside down and we'll do M.
Mystery Men.
Oh, we got a comment on our Mystery Man video. We got 2 comments on our Mystery Man video that is gigantic. If you're listening, whoever made those gigantic comments, thank you very much. I'm
still reading them.
Insanely detailed, and that was very much appreciated.
That's the hidden messages of Mystery Men. If you haven't seen that video, by the way, you should go back and check it out and then look at the comments. It's a very good video.
That's some good internet horror in there, Paul. Good man. Right, I'm going to try and walk us out by saying we love you all. Watch classic cinema. You now have no excuse. We've been Heroes Out.
Yeah, I've been Paul.
I've been Patrick. And then you say,
and we've been Heroes Out.
I got that completely wrong. Anyway, I'll talk to you all soon. I'm hitting end stream, Paul. Wave at the people.
See you later, guys. Don't forget 3 p.m. ET time tomorrow, which goes YouTube, which get classical monster movies. Go watch it. There will be a quiz.
Link in the description down below.